All right, welcome to Rapid Fire Manufacturing. Today I have my brother from up north. He is the Paul Bunyan of machining, Ian Sandusky. He is a contributor for Practical Machinist. He also runs Lakewood Machine and Tool up in Ontario. Ian brings a ton of hands-on experience to running machine shops and a unique perspective of how to solve challenges in the industry. Ian, thank you so much for joining today.
Well, thank you very much for the kind words, and thank you very much for having me. I'm excited about this one. You've been doing quite well with this series, and I'm very excited to participate.
Awesome, thank you so much. So, running Lakewood Machine and Tool, you have a front row seat of some of the real world challenges within machining. What's one lesson that you've learned from managing the day-to-day operations that's surprised you the most?
I I would say surprised in that I feel like I constantly have to keep relearning this lesson, and that's never assume you know everything and never assume that there's one way to do things. No matter what kind of operations you're running in a shop, no matter how you run your shop, no matter what kind of tooling you're using, you got to keep an open mind, or else you will get bit by it repeatedly. Just because you guys like doing something a certain way doesn't mean you should be closed off at looking at some of the other ways to do things. So really keeping on top of what's out there, not assuming that just because I like doing something some way is the way to do it, is where you see the biggest improvements in your machine shop on a daily basis. Take some chances. Take your established process and look, is it the best way to do it? It's something that you should be doing every day, and it's hard to do because it's humbling. But when you find a way that really blows your previous method out of the water, it makes it all worth it.
Now, is that something you need to be surrounded with people that sort of push you to take those risks? So you're not just everyone's like, hey, we're going to be comfortable, make the same decisions. Like, no, let's push each other to sort of come up with new ideas.
Big time. And fostering an environment where people are allowed to say stuff like that. We all know the old guy at the shop who likes the way he does his stuff, but even having an environment where people maybe who are newer to the trade can say, hey, what if we do this? Is it a great idea all the time? No, but fostering an environment where they're free to say that because, maybe they have a different perspective you haven't thought of. So if not having an environment where people push, having one where people aren't going to be punished for asking questions or, they're encouraged to share their opinion on things.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's incredibly important. And as far as growth too, right? Like a lot of those failures, you grow a lot during those experiences,
You
painfully,
win or you
but
learn.
yeah, yeah. So as someone who leads a machine shop, what strategies have you found to be the most productive in maintaining high standards and quality while keeping productivity up?
That's always a really tough one because, kind of like you're outlining with that question, if you have full inspection and full QA on everything during every step and you have 18 people looking at every part, are you going to have the correct part come out at the end? Probably. Is that part going to be profitable and productive? Probably not. The biggest thing that we found that has helped us is giving people enough autonomy to be able to control their own processes, do inspections, but also keeping on top of doing secondary inspections. So person A may have the ability to say, this is where I'm going to measure this part during op one, op two, op three. You have autonomy to do that. No one's going to micromanage you, breathe down your neck on that, unless it's, there's always exceptions to every rule. But then having someone else come back and verify that after and say, hey, listen, your process, you missed this on op one. Now let's go back and look at the process. So it's giving a high level of, people want to be able to run their own parts, decide how they want to do things, take agency for it. I like to think that everybody we hire, and at most shops, most people that get hired, they're smart people. They know what they're doing. If they don't, they'll ask. But give them the chance to do things they want to do in the method they want to do them, and then have someone else verify that it's coming out correct. Or maybe even have two or three people check that same part, depending on the complexity or the tolerance. That's kind of the healthy balance for us. Do we still make mistakes? Of course, it happens. Are we as productive as we could be? Of course not. That's continuous improvement, but that's kind of weird where we try to strike the balance in that.
That's awesome. I do like that autonomy aspect to give people that level of autonomy. And I'm assuming that's when you're hiring, you're looking for that too, right? It's are these person I don't have to sit here and babysit the whole time. They have that, certain level of autonomy.
The biggest thing that we look for when we hire is, well, I mean, aside from ability and background and all that stuff, but is interest. If you have an interest in what you're doing, you have an interest in mechanical stuff, you have an interest in making sure your part is right, that person is going to be a lot more successful than someone who is just checking the boxes. I don't really care if this program is fast. I want someone who's looking at it and saying, this is cool to me. I want to see how quick I can get this program, or I want to see if I can, measure this part this way or build a fixture for QA that's going to make it work. So when you combine a high level of interest with a high level of agency, personal agency, that's kind of where the magic happens. Again, does it work every time? No, but I don't think anything does.
Now, is this something you'll notice pretty quickly during the interviewing process too? Like, okay, this person's definitely has an interest that is going to pull them in and make them more efficient or curious, I guess.
Yeah, it's something we look for. It's pretty easy to identify. There's questions you can ask like, hey, when you were a kid, when your bike broke, did you fix it or did your dad fix it? Or, I don't know, I can't think of any other question. I don't do much interviewing these days. Usually my production manager, because he's the guy who's going to be dealing with them day in, day out. But he has some good questions that he likes to ask that kind of, I don't want to say isolate that trait, but really kind of bring it forward,
Got it. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So you have dual experience, right? Running the machine shop and then also practical machinist. You get to interview all these different owners and companies. What do you think smaller machine shops should prioritize in today's competitive market?
Definitely. A lot of the most successful shops I've seen out there, and I almost aspire to be too, especially on the smaller end, they're focused, they're niche. One of the biggest things that people try to do when they start a machine shop is they want to be everything to everybody. If you have a problem, we can solve it. If you have a part, we can make it. It's a business strategy, but then who are you competing with? Everybody. You're competing with a guy in his garage, you're competing with an AS9100 shop that has 100 employees. Trying to specify down and saying, hey, do you know what? We do parts for rock crawling Jeeps, or, one of the things we do tooling for rotary transfer machines. There's not a lot of people that do it. It's a specialized niche. It doesn't mean that you can't be on top of your game and on top of your pricing and constantly trying to improve, but it helps specialize you and narrow the field a little bit of who you're competing with. And also it can help you then, because if my shop specializes in this and I know another shop that does, another thing, we can trade work back and forth because we're not competing for the same customers. A lot of the best shops I've seen out there kind of have that niche that they've found. Finding that niche is exceptionally hard, but once you're in it, you can really excel and then start to widen out. Instead of doing this, I do this and accessories for this, or we're a round and ground shop and now we offer heat treat in house too. And you kind of expand out from that niche rather than just being as wide as possible to everybody.
That's really cool. I like that collaboration aspect too. It's like, hey, we focus on one particular area. Now I know, Jim down the street who specializes in heat treating, I'm going to send over there, and vice versa. He'll send stuff your way. So that's really cool to see that.
We do a lot of round and ground stuff, a lot of cylindrically ground or centerless ground stuff. We don't do it in-house, so we have a very nice working relationship with a shop where that's all they do. They do round and ground. We do all the machining. They grind it. They're happy. We're happy. If we have a customer that comes along and wants stuff ground, I just send them along. If they have a customer that comes along and wants machining work done, perfect. Send them my way. And it's kind of a nice, I hate the word synergy, but a nice synergy there.
That's really cool. And I imagine this is going to be more common too with things being brought back into, North America, where we're going to see a lot more collaboration and different machine shops collaborating with each other, right?
Big time, big time. And if you can find the thing that you do really well, it's better doing that 6 hours a day if you can fill your machines than doing something you're not good at 24 hours a day. You can charge more, you're going to have less mistakes, you're going to enjoy what you're doing more, you can invest in it more accurately. If I do everything for everybody and I don't know what kind of machine to buy, I got a million different machines to look at. If I focus on one thing really specifically, well, now I kind of know where I can go and take my shop to the next level by putting this on the floor or bringing in this kind of capability.
Now, is that something you would set up? Say you start a machine shop in Ohio. Are you going to look around at all the machine shops and say, hey, where can I really stand out? This isn't done as often, and then base your machine, select your machine based on that?
I mean, for anybody starting a shop or, who is in the infant stages of running their shop, knowing your market and knowing what's local to you is going to be critical. A lot of our biggest customers are big customers because they're very close to us. They're around the corner. They're the kind of places that we wouldn't have the opportunity to get into if we were, in a different province or a different city. It's because they're right there. Now we have to work very hard to keep them, and they do have the opportunity to go anywhere at any time. But that first in does come from local business. Quick turnaround, the ability to drop by and talk to them whenever you want, or vice versa. So knowing what kind of shops and what kind of industries are in your area, not even necessarily, I mean, if you are a shop that wants to specialize in turning and you have the world's largest turning shop a block away from you, might be a problem. But you might be able to pick up work that they won't take on because they're too big. So you do have to do the homework to kind of know what industries you're serving and then who else may be serving them in your area to kind of capitalize on that.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, it's something that I definitely have just wondered about, right? And that's a good point too. So say there is a big corporation near you, you can reach out to them and say, hey, we have another machine shop. If there's something that's, too small, like please send it our way. I don't know how that would work, but
Yeah,
is that something
subcontracting
along those
happens all
lines?
the time.
Okay. Okay. Well, awesome. Ian, I do see we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining. For those of you watching, stay tuned for more insights from industry experts. Thanks again, Ian.
Thank you very much for having me.